We begin with a topic that could lead to a devastating catastrophe if not addressed urgently. That is, Russia backing out of the Black Sea grain deal. You see, many countries in Africa were dependent on Ukrainian wheat for the longest. However, Russian President Vladimir Putin withdrew from the deal, calling it meaningless. The president now says that Russia expects a record harvest this year and could be a replacement of Ukrainian grain, both commercially and free of charge. But can the continent count on Russia's promises? Let's find out in this next report.
The halt of the Black Sea grain deal has caused a ruckus, not only in Europe, but the impact will be felt more profoundly in Africa. Experts from the continent lament that the end of the initiative creates instability and uncertainty in global food markets. That could raise prices and increase food insecurity for vulnerable nations. Sudan, Somalia, and Ethiopia, for instance, are dependent on food imports from Ukraine.
What it does do is that it creates instability and uncertainty in the global food markets, which actually contributes to increase in food prices, which results in increasing food insecurity and vulnerability for a large number, millions of people around the world.
The suspension marks the end of an accord that the UN and Turkey brokered last summer to allow food to leave the Black Sea region. The initiative helped lower the prices of wheat, vegetable oil, and other food commodities.
It's not as if Africa has a priority in that market. Whoever comes first with the right amount of money will be willing to buy. But also removing Ukraine from the international market. Remember when Ukraine came back and was able to sell through this deal, the commodity price of some of these grains went down by as much as 23%, and 23% is a huge margin. So even if Russia says it's going to step up, the removal of millions of tons of Ukrainian grain is still going to affect the price of this grain. And there's no other continent that is more price sensitive in grains more than Africa.
But food insecurity worldwide is growing as developing countries also struggle to deal with climate change, conflict, and economic crisis. Finding suppliers outside Ukraine that are farther away could also raise costs.
We need to make sure that food is available, accessible, and affordable for people. And also that as a humanitarian community, we can intervene at the right time, rather than when things are so bad that it's very difficult to reverse.
The threat of insecurity remains even for the refugees. Al-Shabaab this month attacked a Somali military base just 12 kilometers from the Kenya border. Somali forces are under pressure to assume security responsibilities as African Union peacekeeping forces continues its withdrawal from the country. Kenya's government is now in discussions with the United Nations on how to integrate the hundreds of thousands of refugees into host communities in the future.
I can tell you that the situation is quite bad. People are dying en masse. You remember recently the UN Chief Gutierrez was there to assess that situation. So the repatriation efforts have largely stalled because one, it's a voluntary process. You cannot force people to leave. So that's one. Two is they're seeing increased Somali nationals coming into Kenya, running away from the very dire famine that is in Somalia.
Russia remains adamant not to restore the grain deal, but its president Vladimir Putin has indicated that his promise to supply food to Africa will be fulfilled. Governments in African nations are still banking on this pledge. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.